Go ahead and click that now. Oh, nope, somebody else got it. Thank you. We do record our meetings so that we can go back to them. It helps us with our notes, but also for those folks who weren't able to join us today, they can check that out on our YouTube later and get all the information that you're getting today. So hopefully you're all okay with that recording. But if not, feel free to reach out to me. I'm happy to hear those concerns and we can reevaluate. I do want to jump right into the meeting. We have a full agenda today, and I want to make sure there's plenty of time for everything. If you have not done so yet, though, please do introduce yourself in chat so that we know who's here. That's very helpful. And note that we do have some captioning options if you need those, as well as ASL. So without further ado, I'm going to go ahead and hand it over to Sochi, who's got an important introduction to make for us today.
Hi, good afternoon. Buenas tardes. My name is Sochi Esparza, she, her pronouns, and I am the Program Administration Manager with the Office of Self-Sufficiency here at ODHS. Thank you, Nisha, for allowing us to take a few minutes. Today, I have the pleasure of introducing Meora Solar, who as of January 2nd has began her new role as SNAP co-manager. And so I'm very happy to introduce you to her, and I wanted to turn it over to her to tell you a little bit about herself. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Sochi. Some of you may know me from my previous role as the role coordinator for the different programs that SSP leads, and I led the different meetings that are held in order to gather feedback from a lot of our public members and our community members. And I'm a lot of things. I grew up in Eugene, Oregon. I grew up in the in-between, so I was a kiddo from a biracial family, a white mother from the Buffalo area and my dad from the Bronx. And so I have a heart for people that are living in the in-between. And as you can see, many things, I have, the biggest thing for me is that I've been a product of a community that's come together and supported me. The only thing you'll notice there is I was a teen mother. I had my first daughter 2 weeks after I turned 17. And so I understand many of the struggles that a lot of our families go through. All of our struggles are very unique. And me understanding and knowing my struggles doesn't mean that I can understand somebody else's specific struggles, but I definitely know what it feels like to pull out an EBT card or a WIC card and have people behind you hemming and hawing. And so I have a huge heart for what we're doing and bringing a lot of humanity to it, as well as really finding ways to connect directly from the voices of the communities, because we don't know how to shift our programs if we're not listening to people. So one of my biggest hopes is to come into our communities and travel around and really be able to put a face to our program and really put a listening heart to the program. So thank you all for all the feedback that you constantly provide to us. And the idea is we can't shape our program to better serve our state without your feedback. So we really appreciate your advocacy. With that, I want to share a couple updates. As many of you know, and I just want to share that this is going to be a very short update. We've got a lot that's happened in the last 2 weeks in our state. If you have additional questions from what I'm about to share, I will say that we are writing some news releases and some social media releases. So you might have some of your questions answered with that. And if not, please reach out and we will help make sure that we can support you so that you can support your communities. One of the very first, most exciting things is that we applied for and were approved a federal waiver regarding SNAP replacement. So there is an ability for us to replace food when it's destroyed in an expulsion. There are certain requirements, and when we request a waiver, it allows us some flexibility. So what the federal government has allowed is that for individuals who experienced food destruction in Benton, Clackamas, Columbia, Lane, Lincoln, Lynn, and yes, I'll put these in the chat, Marion, Multnomah, Polk, Washington, and Yamhill counties. Those individuals have an extended time to report their loss of food purchased with SNAP benefits based on the weather destruction. So their deadline, instead of 10 days from the date of their food was destroyed, which is our normal limit, they have until February 16th. And I will put that date in the chat too. You don't have to furiously write notes. Please help get that message out. We are speaking as a team because we're getting information from different places that there are additional counties and areas that were really heavily hit. One that we've noticed was on the governor's declaration is Hood River. So please know we as a team are discussing further amending that. And so just keep your ear and your eyes open for any additional social media releases, press releases, because we will send that stuff out as we get any, or if I'll say if we get any additional approvals from the federal government. And David, before I take your question, the second one is that we are seeing different flurries of fraud pop up, and we're seeing different phishing scams on social media for people trying to get access to someone's EBT card. So we want to get the message out, and we would love for you to continue that message, especially in our communities that really depend on word of mouth, that the only safe place to register their card and insert their numbers is the EBT Edge app and website. So it's really important that families are aware of that. They obviously can choose to register their number, but there's a very intense risk that their number will be compromised if it's inserted in any other website or app other than EBT Edge. I don't know if anybody else has I see David's hand, so hopefully that's the first time.
Yeah, thanks so much, Miora, and welcome to the program. We were really grateful for the sort of quick information from ODHS around how to get folks connected to this, and had a huge response from folks who participate in SNAP, and sort of like came up with some themes from the responses that we got. There was troubleshooting among groups to figure it out. Some of this I don't think you have a chance to address, but the first one, I think when we communicate it in the future, just reminding folks that they can access their receipts from the Edge account, it's going to be really useful to folks. But two other sort of big themes in there. Again, I don't know how much ODHS can address these, but just so you're aware of what we're hearing from folks, wanted to share that. And again, thanks for applying for and receiving that waiver. We're going to be continuing to share it with folks and get sort of more applications in before that February 16th deadline.
Thank you for that feedback. I'm going to make sure that the next person can have as much time as was promised at 2:15. But before we switch to that next presenter, I do want to say that I assisted in Springfield at one of the community places where we were helping people fill out forms. And we noticed that barrier too. And I was sitting saying, what about tater tots, French fries, Pop-Tarts, Eggos, trying to just think dairy, cheeses, and realizing how hard it is, and to see people's faces of the overwhelmed who are already in traumatic situations. Some were on their 8th day of no power and still didn't have power. So we're looking at federal regulations, talking as a team to see what we can do to help having that process in any forms involve people as much trauma informed as possible, as well as meet those federal regulations. So we're listening, and we're going to keep working on this process. I really appreciate your feedback.
All right, thank you so much, Mayora, and thank you, David, for that feedback. It is really helpful to receive that feedback. So as you're working with Oregonians, please gather that and send it our way so that we know, and that we can work to address these things. So we definitely welcome that. Our next presenter is Adriana, and they will be presenting on a new resource. So I believe, Adriana, do you need to share your screen?
Oh, hi. Thanks, Michelle. Yeah, I will need to share my screen in a minute. But before I do that, I just want to say I appreciate just knowing that there will be that extended deadline for SNAP. You know, one of the other things that I do also with ODHS is I manage the Spanish Facebook web page. So I'm thinking actually about doing like a quick presentation, a quick live about, you know, this topic specifically and how people can request a replacement. And it's good for me also to hear some of the concerns anyways. I'm going to be reaching out to you, Maura, to talk a little bit more about what can I share on that. But anyways, but yes, so I would love to share my screen, and I'll do like a very quick introduction. My name is Adriana Taylor, and I'm a bilingual communications officer with ODHS. And I work in a few projects, but one of them, let me see if I can share my screen, is supporting the web team with, you know, all the information that is on our website. And now the Spanish, give me a second. Can you guys see my screen, first of all? You can, okay, sweet. My computer has been very slow, so I apologize. Okay, with our Spanish ODHS website. And I don't know if everyone here had seen this website before, but you know, the web team did a whole redesign of the ODHS website last summer. It was a huge project. We wanted to make sure that the website was more accessible for everyone that it comes to look at the site and information on our site. But also another thing we wanted to make sure is that we had information for Spanish speaking communities, just because we know Spanish is the second most spoken language in the state. So we created or transcreated a few pages to begin with, but we wanted to make sure that as much as possible, everyone that comes to our site, any Spanish speaker that comes to our site that might want to know more about the different benefits and programs and resources we can offer could find information in Spanish, and ideally, right, to the same level that they have this information in English. So it took, you know, a lot of work, but you know, that we had added, as of this week, I think it was Monday, we added 65 new transcribed pages to the website. So now we have 110 Spanish pages on the site. And these are not pages just Google Translate. You know, our team actually transcribed, made sure that the information makes sense. We all know that machine translation is not always the best. So, you know, reviewed all the information, make sure that it actually does make sense, that it would be the easiest we could for people to understand. And, you know, hopefully, again, that this would be a good resource for our communities, but also for our partners that are working with our communities and work with people that speak Spanish and might want to use this as a resource when they're talking to them about, you know, applying administering benefits or all the different programs. One of them, for example, being SNAP and the replacement of benefits. All that information is there in Spanish. But I just wanted to show you guys this because I'm very excited. It was a lot of work and I'm really hoping it will be a good resource. So what I'm on now is the English site, the one that anyone that comes to our site would see, but you'll see this button here that says Sitio en Español at the top. So if you click on that, it's going to take you to the Spanish version of the page, and it has its own URL, so people actually can just type, and I'm going to type this on the chat, but servicioshumanos.oregon.gov will take people to this page. So it has its own URL, so people don't need to come to the English site to access this. They can access it on their own. But just wanted to show, you know, it has a more robust navigation because we added that much more content, so people can navigate and hopefully easily find what they need. So whether they need support with, you know, food and cash or childcare benefits or medical benefits, information about older adults, people with disabilities, emergencies and safety, you know, sharing complaints. You know, we want to make sure that there's also a way where people can let us know if they're having any issues with our services or our agency. But again, it has all the information there. The other thing I want to mention is we have this little search bar. So if, for example, somebody wanted to find information about replacement of benefits, they can look for like repuesto, for example, which would be replacement, and they can very easily navigate to the page that has all the information about how to request replacement of benefits if they were stolen or if they got lost due to, I'm on TANF, sorry. But if they got lost kind of through power outages or any other type of emergency like that, this is the one I was looking for. SNAP has more information. We're going to be updating the TANF as well. It'll have more information on that, but this is the information on TANF, on SNAP, sorry. It also has all this information about how to prevent or how to protect our benefits from electronic theft. But anyways, so it has all that information. It also, if anyone wants to see this information in English, it has this little button down here. So at any page, if people see this button that says English here, for example, on the Spanish, they can easily navigate to the version of that page in English, or they can switch back to Spanish and see basically the same information there. And the other thing that I wanted to mention, going back, is we also have this Office Finder feature that was previously only available in English, but we want to make sure also that people that are on our site can find information about the offices that are the closest to them. I know because I've asked a few people, I think a lot of people just try to Google things, it's like, you know, DHS or, you know, their offices. But, you know, one of the benefits of using this specific tool is that people could find, you know, there's different ODHS offices, and not all the offices provide the same information on the same type of benefits. But if people want to know specifically about, you know, an office that can help them with food or cash, they can find specifically SSP offices, or if they want information about domestic violence or disabilities, like DD information or resources, they can search that way. They can also just use this button that says, you know, basically use your location. So if they're on their smartphones, they can click on that. It'll show them the closest offices to them. You know, obviously it also has the map where people can just click and explore. And also, you know, especially during, you know, storms and, you know, if there's any flooding or wildfires, you know, if there's any offices that are closed, this map will also show them if there's any offices closed. The last thing we want is people showing up at an office and just find out that it's actually closed and they cannot actually receive help there. So this is also a tool that people can use, and again, that our partners can use. But yeah, I just wanted to share this with you guys and make sure that you know that this is out there, that it is a resource, and yeah, hopefully you can use it. And also we always welcome feedback. This is a work in progress. So if you see anything that is, you know, might not seem right, or any information that you think should be there, but it's not, you can always let us know. I put my information on the chat, and I added my email as well. So anyways, just contact me if you have any questions or any feedback, but I think that's about it, unless anyone has any questions.
All right, I don't see any questions so far. But thank you so much, Adriana. Maybe you can you put your email in the chat one more time in case somebody maybe entered after you did that? That would be great.
Of course, I will, and I'm also going to put the link to the page on the chat. And David, yes, if you guys can help us boost, if you can share with others, again, I think this is a great resource, and I want to make sure that people know about it. But yes, and I will enter my information again. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you. All right. So on to our next agenda item, tribal consultation. So I would like to introduce Soren, who will talk to us about that. And Susie, if you could bring back up the presentation, I went ahead and copied in the presentation into our slide deck.
Great. Thank you. Thank you so much. Misha, thank you. Misha and Stephanie, thank you so much for having me here today. My name is Soren Metzger, and I am with the ODHS Office of Tribal Affairs. I am the Tribal Consultation and Operations Manager, and I was asked here today to talk to you all about the newly adopted Tribal Consultation Policy. So next slide. I think a really important kind of starting point for this conversation is really the state's commitment to honor the 9 federally recognized tribes of Oregon, to uphold sovereignty and recognize the right of tribes to self-determination and self-governance. And I think what a great place to start the conversation. As you all know, we are state employees, we are public administrators, and wanted to be sure that we were all clear on that. Next slide. Thank you. Tribal sovereignty is, so this is a definition of tribal sovereignty directly from the Tribal Consultation Policy, which we will share a link to the policy so that you all have that. But ultimately, sovereignty is that inherent authority of the tribes here, the 9 federally recognized tribes of Oregon, to self-governance and self-determination, as I had mentioned. I also want to be abundantly clear, considering that this is a partner meeting, that when we talk about tribal governments, we talk about the 9 federally recognized tribes of Oregon, we're recognizing that that there is a government-to-government relationship between the state of Oregon, the Oregon Department of Human Services, and those tribal governments. And in this context, when we talk about partners or tribal partners, we're talking about, for example, the Urban Indian Health Program, the Native American Rehabilitation Association, or the Northwest Portland Area Indian Health Boards. So if we have representatives from either of those groups, hello, and it's good to see other folks I saw in the chat, or I saw on the participant list who all is here. It was good to see your names. Next slide, please. So the role of the Office of Tribal Affairs. So I am a representative of the Office of Tribal Affairs, and the Office of Tribal Affairs is not a direct service provider here within the Department of Human Services. And instead, what we do is we work with ODHS leaders and staff to uphold the government-to-government relationship with the 9 federally recognized tribes of Oregon. And so what does that actually mean? That means that we advocate and that we guide ODHS leaders on the development of tribally appropriate programming, services, and policies. For example, the development of the Tribal Consultation Policy. We also provide tools, resources, and training on tribal history and engagement, and then coordinate between the office of, we coordinate with the respective programs, so in this case, SSP, and tribal governmental officials on engagement and consultation. Next slide. So why consultation? So consultation for a number of reasons. The consultation is really about upholding tribal sovereignty, improving government-to-government relationships, and opening those lines of communications. It's also about outcomes. If we want to see improved outcomes with American Indians and Alaska Natives served by the Department of Human Services, we need to offer consultation. Also, consultation is required by law. There was an executive order passed back in 1996 by Governor Kitzhaber at the time, which was then codified into law with Senate Bill 770 in 2001. And so I feel like there's lots of reasons why tribal consultation, as well as a number of our federal, our federal regulatory agencies also require consultation. And really all of those reasons are why we now have a consultation policy. I wanted to make sure that you had specific requirements just in terms of what is in the law for consultation, and so that you have that all on this screen. So next slide. So the tribal consultation policy. So at this point, we do have a tribal consultation policy in effect. It was adopted October 6, 2023. And when I say adoption, that means at that point, we had heard from the ODHS Director, Fairbourse Paksaresh, as well as the OHA interim director at the time, Dave Baden, and the 9 federally recognized tribes that they were comfortable with moving forward on adopting the policy, which you now have. Our director, Director Fairborst Paksaresh, understands that with a big policy and upholding that sovereignty with the 9 federally recognized tribes of Oregon is going to take time. It takes time to build up our processes and have things in order for this to go live, which it did for ODHS on January 1st, 2024. So I think that is, you know, in a lot of ways, we're still building the car as we drive it, right? Because that's still not very much time between adoption date and operational date. And so lots of things are still being negotiated and fine-tuned. But in terms of our rules, as you all know, the agency works on lots of rules all the time. What this means for those timelines is that consultation is going to be required ahead of rule advisory committees for rules going into effect after June 1st. And so we wanted to make sure that you were all aware of that. And so with that, we can move to the next slide, please. So what is consultation? I think that, you know, often folks confuse consultation with engagement, right? Engagement is what we're doing now. We're in a meeting space, we're providing updates, we're having conversation, there's questions, dialogue, discussion. Consultation, on the other hand, is a formal process between governments. And the tribal consultation policy formalizes what that process will look like between ODHS, OHA, and the 9 federally recognized tribes of Oregon. And so staying true to the spirit of the law and the policy, the idea behind consultation is that at the earliest possible point in the process of program development, implementation planning, policy changes, funding requirements, that ODHS leaders and staff that we're asking ourselves, how is what we're doing going to impact tribes? And then at that point, offering consultation. So consultation, again, a formal process between governments. My understanding is that tribes are currently developing laws and in terms of what consultation looks like for their specific tribe, but it's really governmental officials coming together and talking through the process of program development, implementation planning, and that those ideas are being being discussed at the earliest possible point in the process so that ODHS program leaders and staff can then build that into whatever's being developed. And so that's really what we mean by consultation. Next slide. So in this slide, we wanted to give you a high-level overview of kind of what that process looks like for ODHS. So programs are currently developing their process for identifying critical events, which is the language in the policy that requires consultation. They will then work with the Office of Tribal Affairs with me to kind of develop those official notices to governmental officials. Those notices will be sent out. The Office of Tribal Affairs will coordinate any requests for consultation from tribal governments and make sure that those get scheduled and that there are notes and there's reports that are sent out afterwards to talk about how that feedback and information is incorporated into what was being developed for the agency. So I would also like to note for folks on this call, at least initially, right, this is a new policy for the agency. This process may result in kind of the standard program timelines and processes needing to slow down, right? Like we're not going to be able to move things as quickly because we do have to allow for that time for consultation as required in the policy. So for example, the tribal consultation policy requires that we give tribal governmental officials 30 days to request that formal consultation. And then of course, another 30 days to kind of get those consultation meetings kind of going. So we will have to slow down just a bit and wanted to make sure that you all were aware of that. Next slide, please. We've listed out here what are some of those critical events that rise to that level of needing to offer tribes consultation. I'll let folks read through it. But I really want to highlight that it's about the significant, specific, and disproportionate impacted tribes, right? As public administrators, if we're making decisions that have a significant, specific, and disproportionate impact to tribes, that we're doing the right thing by engaging those governments in kind of what's being developed, or providing that opportunity for consultation at that earliest possible point. And so you can see there's all kinds of things that rise to that level. So, you know, state plan amendments, policy changes, program activities, funding opportunities, rulemaking, you have the complete list there. Next slide, please. Let's see. Next. Okay, and can we skip? I accidentally made a duplicate slide that I didn't catch before now. Sorry about that. And so what I want to leave folks with is that we are currently working with our communications team. When you work in a big agency, there's lots of people involved with processes. And so we are working on providing some information on the ODHS webpage, Office of Tribal Affairs, specific to consultation. That will be coming soon. So if this is something that you're interested in, stay tuned. We also will follow up with this meeting with a tribal consultation fact sheet in case you have additional questions or want additional information. And then on this slide, you also have contact information. So I am Soren Metzger, again, the Tribal Consultation and Operations Manager with the Office of Tribal Affairs. And there are SSP specific contacts. So you'll see Joanna Wright is the Process Improvement Analyst and Tribal Liaison. And her contact information is provided there, as well as Dwight Palmer, who is the Office of Equity and Multicultural Services Service Equity Manager supporting SSP. And we are all contacts if folks have questions. So with that, I think I'm right there at my time. I might have a minute or two if there's questions. Otherwise, I will turn it back over to you, Misha. Thank you.
Thank you. Everyone is doing really well at staying on time today. We even have 2 minutes. So if anybody has any questions for Soren, feel free to ask those now. Otherwise, I did put a link into chat. So if you'd like to view the consultation policy, you can do so. Just an apology from Joanna. I know she would have loved to have been here today to be part of this presentation so that you could see her directly, but she did have a conflicting meetings. All right, I don't see any questions, but thank you so much, Soren. We appreciate you coming by for us today. So we are on to the next agenda item, which I know has been on the top of everyone's mind for some time, and that is summer EBT. And so I'm going to hand it over to Stephanie right now, who's going to talk to you a little bit more about that.
Wonderful. Thank you, Misha. Hi, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Stephanie Cook, and I am a policy analyst with the SNAP team. Apologies that I'm not on camera. My internet bandwidth has not been great lately. So if I turn on my camera, you tend to not be able to hear me or vice versa. So I'm going to leave it off for today because it's probably more important to hear me. So I will be sharing an update in collaboration with Maria Klemenko, who will also share some information. So Oregon has moved forward and provided our agreement to Food and Nutrition Services that we intend to run a summer EBT program here in Oregon starting in summer 2024. So we are moving through that process very quickly because summer is just right around the corner. So we have a lot of planning to be done, which includes, actually developing the program, completely new rules, hiring, systems, everything that comes along with a brand new program. But we have a lot of support from all the different parts of the agency. And so at this time, we're really open for questions, and I'll, turn it over to Maria to give an update about how we're working with our legislative partners as well. So Maria, I'll hand it to you for right now, and then we'll open it for questions.
Thank you so much, Stephanie. Hi, everyone. For those who don't know me or who are unfamiliar with me, although I have been to this meeting a few times, my name is Maria Klemenko, and I'm the legislative analyst for self-sufficiency programs. So summer EBT is something we've been working on for quite some time to try and get this program up and running. So many of you know that this program, the benefits are fully federally funded, but we are required to provide a state match for administrative costs at a rate of 50%. So we have made an ask to the Committee of Ways and Means, a concurrent ask for 2024 and 2025, which totals about 12.7 million to ensure that we're able to get this program up and running, which includes some third-party vendor costs due to how quickly we have to get everything turned around. We did a legislative briefing on Tuesday, to relevant members of Human Services Committee, the Education Committee, as well as others, to give a broad overview of what it is we're asking for and what is needed in Oregon in order to move this forward. And we will likely present on this topic at the Committee of Ways and Means during session, most likely the first week of session, which starts on February 5th. So that's what we're planning for. And I do want to open it up for questions in case you all want to know kind of where the areas or what subjects you want to speak to with legislators as well as other advocates. Questions from anyone?
Looks like David has a question.
Yeah, thanks, Maria, and thanks, folks. We're just so grateful and aware of how much effort it has taken to stand up and build out and submit to NOI. Just really grateful for the work that ODHS and other agencies have been doing to get to this point. Really excited to be advocates for the funding and other pieces necessary for this program, along with Matt and our friends at Oregon Food Bank. We've been meeting with legislators just to sort of like prep them for this ask, and are going to be doing some follow-up in the next couple of weeks. And I've gotten a couple of questions from them that wanted to sort of clarify with you all. I have all sorts of programmatic questions as well, but I'll just wait on those because I know you're furiously building the program as we speak. I think the first question that I've had from legislators was, does ODHS plan to use Medicaid enrollment data to directly certify participants in 2024?
Maria, I can take that question. Yes, David, we do. So since we are, excuse me, since we are doing a pilot project with the Medicaid enrollment for free and reduced meals, we do plan on using that eligibility group.
Oh, that's awesome. I knew it wasn't required, so just wanted to check in. That's great. I have a couple more quick ones. Sorry for taking so much time. Just curious if you know right now if there's a plan to launch a statewide application in 2024, or is that going to happen in 2025?
So the plan right now is to launch one in 2024. It does have to be built though. So that is a tentative answer with all like hopes that we will have an application for 24. That's our plan for sure.
Awesome. Got it. Okay.
Yeah, and we're in close conversations with ODE, right, to make sure that we're leveraging anything available through the schools of what already exists. But those conversations are in progress.
Yeah, that makes sense. Again, we're so aware of how much work it has required and will require to just stand up the program in any form. Just want to be accurate in communicating with legislators. Okay, last two. I'm curious if you all know at this point in the process whether summer EBT participants will receive those benefits on Oregon Trail cards, or if you're looking at some other form. And the last question is kind of wonky, again, coming from legislators. are the new, and maybe you got this on Tuesday and you've already clarified this, but are the new positions using sort of existing job descriptions? The question was around whether they'd be able to expedite DIS approval for these positions and stand up the program in time. Those are my last two. Thanks.
Sure. No, those are great questions. So I can answer the first one about EBT cards, and then I'm going to pass off the second. So the plan and the way we're writing our plan of operation and management, so kind of like the state plan, is that we will be issuing benefits onto the SNAP or TANF EBT card that the household already has. If they do not already have an EBT card associated to that account, we'll be issuing a new card for the household. So it will be different than pandemic EBT, where each individual child received an EBT card. This time it will be for the household. So we're hoping to make it more simple for families to keep track of their benefits and understand that it's just for the entire household rather than having that card for each individual child. And then the question about positions, I'll either pass to Maria or over to Sochi.
Thanks, Stephanie. I think Sochi's probably better positioned to answer this question more in detail, but we are really trying to leverage everything that we already have and some of the previous learnings from PEBT. What FNS is clear about is that we can't use SNAP positions or SNAP funded positions in order to do that work, right? But due to some of the previous pilot projects and the PEBT work, we do have a good understanding of the scope of what's required. And we have been kind of prepping as much as we can ahead of time because we know the turnaround is going to be, it's a relatively big lift. So do you want to elaborate a little further?
Yeah, I think what you said is spot on, Maria. The one thing I wanted to add is that, yes, there are positions that are needed as soon as possible. The way that the need for positions was estimated is that certain positions are needed at certain stages of the process. And, thankfully, the eligibility determination positions, those already exist and would not have to be, wouldn't necessitate newer or new position descriptions to be written. So I hope that answers the question.
And feel free to message any one of us if you need a little more of an in-depth overview. We're happy to answer your questions one-on-one. Matt, go ahead.
Yeah, thanks everyone. Just want to echo David's thanks to ODHS and to the governor's office for pushing for this. I know how much labor it's been. Just suffice to say, Congress, when they wrote this program, set up some unnecessary barriers that is making some of this really unnecessarily difficult. But despite those challenges, really appreciate ODHS's commitment to moving forward this. One question, I have not heard this question yet from a legislator, but just want to see if, just check an assumption before I say anything out loud. Curious if we know after, so the 12.7 million is for the next 2 years, for this year and for 2025. Do we have an estimate about what the ongoing cost will be for admin after, like starting in 2026? Like what percentage of this, I know, are the specific costs due to the vendor necessity this year and the one-time build-out costs next year? I don't know, just curious if we have a sense of that, or if it's fair to say like that we anticipate that will go down to some degree post 2025. Just checking that assumption.
I can start off, and then I might need Sochi to fill in the blanks as our sort of numbers wizard who's been putting all of this together. But I think we probably do anticipate some of the costs in terms of administration going down, because part of the reason it's so high is because of the quick turnaround, right? So when you have to stand things up urgently, it is more expensive. One of the things that we don't necessarily know is maybe the full demand, right? So we know that we have a certain number of directly certified children, and then we know that about 30% of them will need to apply, right? And so because this is a new program, I don't think we yet know the full extent of if 100% of those eligible are going to be utilizing these benefits. We think they will, right? So I think we're really looking at 2024 as the first year of the implementation of this program as a learning year, so that we better understand what the demand will be. And Sochi, if you want to add anything further, please do.
I don't think I have anything else to add, Maria. I agree with how you characterize that. Yeah, I think in general, yes, nothing.
Great. And then maybe just related to what David and the conversation earlier about the application, just kind of maybe a heads up and just a collective call to action for all of us is that once that application is created, that I think it's going to be a pretty significant public information effort to ensure that families have accurate information about who needs to apply for the benefits, because we're talking about kids at a little more than half of schools. If they are, it's a slice of kids who are eligible for free meals, but they're not currently on SNAP. Like, those families will need to apply. And I think it's going to take all of our collective efforts to ensure that families receive the right information, and about how to apply there. Obviously the schools are, and I know ODE has been involved with that as well, but I think there's, we would do ourselves well if there was good community outreach on that as well. So.
Yeah, thanks, Matt. Yeah, absolutely agree with that, right? ODHS, I think, is probably not the first point of contact for families that are on free and reduced lunch. So we really only have direct contact with those that receive SNAP or other ODHS benefits. So we are counting on, coordination and engagement at the school district and school level, as well as community partners, as well as our own efforts to make sure that this information gets out accurately and on time, to make sure that we can to make sure that those that are eligible are able to take advantage. Okay, any other questions on SEBT? So if you do have questions, please don't hesitate to reach out to myself, to Stephanie or Sochi. We will be happy to answer your questions. I do see another question in the chat on tribal consultation.
Is Soren still here? Looks like she might be.
No, I am still here.
Did you see the question that's in the chat?
Let's see.
It's very specific to the federal rules governing this program. I saw in there that ITOs are the default administrating agency for students in their area. And again, knowing it's very early in the program setup, I was just curious if you all had heard from tribes or ITOs about whether they intended to operate the program for themselves at this point.
So that's a really good question. And I feel like if Stephanie Cook is still on the line, she did get some additional information just in terms of consultation that had been offered at the federal level. And we are also currently working through what that process looks like at the state level. Stephanie, would you add more?
Yeah, sure. Thanks, Soren. So yes, David, there is the option of ITOs to administer a summer EBT program. They need to work in consultation with the state agency. I believe, and I may need to take this back and get you, like a really firm answer, but the plan right now is that ODHS in collaboration with the Department of Education, will administer the program, even to those within the ITOs. But we are going through the consultation process. And so, you know, we will work with the local tribes to get that information. And then I did confirm that our, the federal agency, FNS, did do tribal consultation prior to issuing the interim final rule. So there's been work on that side as well.
Thank you, Stephanie. So with that, we are at time. We did a great job getting through a lot of stuff today and keeping it on time. So thank you so much for presenters for your work and getting that out to us, and for everybody being here. If you have additional questions, please feel free to reach out to Stephanie or I, and we will get those answered for you. Or if you'd like to put them into chat, we can get those answers and get back to you. So thank you so much, and we'll see you again next month.
Thanks, everyone.